Cool.
and then we'll get going. Okay. All right.
Doing it now. Streaming from here. Cool.
Hi. Okay. I can definitely not look at that because I will be so distracted. All right. Well, hello, everybody tuning in live or catching the recording. I am Melissa Bachnight, and I am here with Stacy Musgrave for our Nova member interview series, which we recently started because we realized, well, we've realized this a long time ago, but that we wanted to share more of the stories of the people in our community because we get to witness that in the inside, and we want to be able to share who we get the pleasure of being in relationship with to our broader community. So thank you for being here today, Stacy. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to get to dive in more with you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I like the idea behind it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's just like, you know the power of telling our
Mhm.
stories and how much it normalizes all the crazy shit we're going through and we think we're alone in it. And I know one of the most powerful points in my life and my transformation was when I was in Landmark worldwide. And Landmark, they have people come up to the mic and share their stories. And I always had all these assumptions about people by looking at them. I'm like, oh, this is who I think this person is. And then they would tell this story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know who anybody is. And then you start to feel like, oh, I kind of have an idea who everybody is at a basic human level, but I just know the power of hearing people's stories and telling our own stories. So we're going to jump right into the deep end as we do.
Oh,
And I want you to paint the picture, because I know you've been through a big transformation in your life, probably more than one. But can you share a pivotal moment in your life or like a turning point in your life that has shaped who you are today?
yeah. Yeah, there have been so many. It is
That sounds
crazy
like
to
it's not
think
just
back.
one.
Oh my gosh, when you think back, it just like I used to be so shy. That was like such a big thing for me. It was this identity piece. And I'm like, oh, I'm shy, I'm timid.
Mm,
And this past year we moved from Pennsylvania to Colorado, and like I can't think of a bigger moment than two people in April of 2023 thinking like, huh, what if we moved somewhere? Like what if we just did? And by November we had our house renovated and sold my husband's business. I quit photography, sold my studio, and convinced our kids that this is an adventure that we're going to go on. And my daughter, who's the oldest, she was in sixth grade at the time, and she was like, "Huh? What? What are we doing?"
what do you mean, Mom?
And that whole process was the biggest like mental challenge that I think I've ever been a part of, because it's
Mm,
just, you can imagine that all of those pieces moving together, but then to make them all kind of like work together in that short of a timeline,
yeah.
it was pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it is wild when you make those big decisions to uproot your entire life, especially
Yeah.
I've done it a couple times as a single woman, but I have not done it before as a partnered
Yeah.
mother. And so that adds just like a whole other layer of complexity to it. And I
Yeah.
know in this transition, so you mentioned that you sold your photography studio. What have you evolved into? Tell us a little bit about your professional background and kind of what you were doing and then now what you're doing.
Yeah. So in my studio, I was doing boudoir photography. So, like, really intimate, empowering portraits of women, and not like your classic, nothing to do with like the sexual gaze. It was really like, I would always tell my clients, don't think like Victoria's Secret as much. Think like Vogue cover. Who do you want to be in this image, and what do you want to see on your wall as artwork? And so I started coaching other photographers in their businesses. So really like business coaching focused. And I did that for probably like a year and a half. And this was right at the point where I had gone on a retreat with someone, with my business coach, and I was like doing mindset coaching at that point. So kind of like lightly dipping my toe into it, realizing that I really connected with people in this deeper way. And, I'd always see the people that are like, I would see the coach being, okay, you're going to go do this thing, and then the person's like, uh-huh. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to go do it. And I'm like, why not? Like, what is it? Because I've been someone who held myself back through everything. So I feel like I could really relate to that. And I share all of that because this was around the time that I didn't know if I was going to pursue photography here or coaching in that capacity. And it felt like almost this I should be doing this because it made sense. This area instead of rural Pennsylvania. I mean, like, talk about you couldn't have a different market. And there
True.
was just this feeling of like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do anything to do with boudoir photography, at least right now, nothing with coaching. And I just fully kind of, it's funny whenever I say like stripped all of that away, because I think like no pun intended, but really
Yeah.
like it fits. And now I just really got into this like life coaching, mindset coaching, this really transformational space for women who often have held themselves back. And I'm like, I know there's a reason. I know that you don't want to be in self-sabotage. I know it because I've been there and it sucks. And so
Hmm.
now to help women out of that feels so much bigger and more fulfilling. Not that the photography wasn't, but this feels even better than that, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Well, it's the evolution, right? We think and nothing was wrong with the photography for the time
Right.
that it served, and it's part of just the evolution. And I hate the term midlife crisis. I think it's ridiculous because it's more of a
Right.
midlife evolution where you're like,
Yes.
oh, there's so much more available. Who am I? What do I believe in? We've got a little bit of life behind our underneath us, and we trust ourselves more. And so I think
Yeah.
we can take bigger, braver moves, because you knew you could build that business. You knew that you could do that. You knew that you could help
Yeah.
women really see themselves and have the confidence. And without that, you probably, I mean, who knows if you would have found coaching, but I always love these big, brave moments where we actually listen to ourselves and the direction that our soul is taking us, even though it's scary as shit. And it probably still continues to be scary as shit. Cause I know I have lots of days where I'm like, is this really what I'm doing in my life? Like, can I do this? Can I do this?
Yes.
And you're like, yeah, no, you can do this.
Yeah.
So
You're
tell me
kind of in
the
that like,
role.
does this
Oh, go
does this
ahead.
feel like a good move?
I
You know what I
know.
mean? Like, and that's what I say when I speak to like the it being the biggest mental challenge.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's funny that you say this midlife crisis because I would talk about it with my husband. I'm like, this looks very much like a midlife crisis, but you know what? Like, I had the same idea that this doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's really
Yeah.
like I've gotten to a point in my life where if we were looking for the perfect business and house and studio, we would have stayed exactly where we were. So obviously there was something that we couldn't quite put our finger on that we were looking for, and we weren't
Hmm.
finding it there. So it's like, I want to go follow that. Who cares what it's called? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with you there.
Yeah. I love that. Well, so then you found us. How long have you been part of the Nova? I mean, you found us through
Hey.
Eventbrite, right?
Yeah, for sure. I want to say since like October maybe of last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what inspired you to come to your first event and then say, hell yes, I want to be a part of this? Because you've been such an instrumental part of our community. You've been incredibly involved. You come to so many of the events. And so I would love for you to share your journey from like, this Eventbrite thing looks pretty interesting to
Yeah.
like where you stand today.
Right. Well, it's interesting because, deciding to let go of the photography, I realized there was so much more inner work that I needed to do around that. So I had this idea that I would just like snap my fingers and here's my business, and I'm like,
Be so
oh,
nice,
wow.
wouldn't it? I
I
want to
had
snap
to
my
do,
fingers and
my gosh, I know. And I'm like, who did I think that I was? Wow. But like, kudos to her for taking the chance. But in the spirit of that, I was just feeling I think really like pretty low throughout a lot of parts of the year. Like that journey is tough, to decide that you're going to say no to something that could work because there's something that feels better. And so I think in those moments, my husband saw the worst of it, and he was my encouragement, honestly, to say like, Stacey, get out of your office, get out of the house, literally. And I was
yeah.
like, oh yeah, you're right. Good point. Like I love connecting with people in person. And it's funny that I say that because the first event that I went to was virtual. And yeah, like I had gone to an exchange call, which like facilitates conversation. And that was with another program I was in before. And I loved it because it had this like breakout aspect and it got you into conversation with people quickly. And the
Hmm.
first call that I was on, Lisa was facilitating. And I was like, oh my gosh, this seems so much like that style. And so I was already like into it for that. And
Yeah.
then just being in a place, and I always joke that the night before I went to like a networking event at the chamber, and it just was so different. Like we walked into that and we were kind of like, huh, maybe we'll just walk right back out. Like that feeling of who am I going to choose to talk to? It sparked so much anxiety that I like thought I had gotten rid of. I'm like, oh, here's this again, like I have to go talk to people in this capacity. And the difference with this was like, oh, I'm going to connect with these people. We have a topic of conversation. I'm going to have a turn to speak. Like it felt like it allowed all those other anxiety inducing pieces to go away so that
Mm-hmm.
I could truly just get into conversation and just be myself. And it felt so comfortable to show up as someone who has been very nervous to do things like that.
Mm,
So from that moment, I know there was like, you can go to two events. I'm like, I think I'm going to do it now. I'm going to become a member because I knew that I was getting the connection piece, but I was also getting the personal development piece that I just absolutely love also.
mhm. When you spoke to, I mean, there's so much in there about the way in which we be together, and it's not that there's not depth possible in chambers or
Yeah.
other organizations, and I know that's not what you're saying,
Oh,
but there's something really critical about the purpose and the intention, and having a little bit of like rules of the game, right? Where you're like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. This is why we hand out conversation cards at events,
yeah.
because it's like, please don't walk up to this person and ask her what she does. Like, do not start there, like, we are not
Yeah.
doing that. And so just giving people some guidance on how to connect. And I think also knowing, because a lot of times when you walk into the room, you're like, I don't actually know who's in here. Like, I don't know what they stand for. It's not even what they do, but it's like, who are they as a person? And there's something so, um, there's a probably a beautiful word that I'm not gonna be able to think of, but maybe welcoming around knowing that
Beautiful.
you, huh?
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted it to be like fancier. But that when you know that the expectation is vulnerability, when you know that the kinds of people that are drawn there like really want to lead with more soul, it sort of
Yeah.
like levels the playing field already of like, okay, I might be a little bit nervous because I'm still in a room of people I don't know, but at least I know enough that like baseline what they stand for. And it helps you kind of like let your guard down, set your masks aside, and show up as yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
And
or
I
at
think the
least
thing
the
for me to
point.
add to that is I've never had a problem being vulnerable. Like I know some people, I heard someone the other day that was like, well, we don't want to be vulnerable. And I was like, oh, I actually do.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I think
all I want to be.
that's when I find my my favorite people that I connect with and when I find the most growth. But I think the thing is for me, it when I go into an event and I don't know where to go or like, oh, who am I going to choose to talk to? Those sort of feelings, it puts me right back in that past version of myself that was like, now I'm instantly so shy again. And I'm like, oh, no, I thought we got rid of that. Like, where did that go? Or where did that
Yeah.
come from? And I think for me, it's like the safety of it. And the, like you said, kind of the rules of the game. I realized that I really like that as unstructured and free flowing as I am. I think that I really thrive in that structure. I'm like, okay, now it's your turn and now it's my turn,
Yeah.
and it just works. It feels so good.
And so how has been being a part of this community impacted your work, and how has it impacted your life?
You know, I think that I came at the point that I found the Nova, I was really looking for how can I get out there and find clients, you know? And so what I that was the intention that I had going into it. Like, this is what we need to do to build our businesses. We need to network. And I will say that I was so pleasantly surprised that it was a way for me to continue more of this personal development side of myself that I just, like I said, I absolutely love it. I know that the work is never done. Like, if we're going to be continuing to grow, we're going to continue to have imposter syndrome. Let's make sure we're still talking about this. But what I've also realized is that I didn't know that I was going to get so much on like the peer community side of things. And it was interesting because for a while I was almost like, oh no, these people are all like, I caught myself in that comparison. It seems like everybody is so, they've been doing this work for so long and they have so much to share. And like, I can't coach these people. Like I'm in the wrong spot, you know? And then when I shifted that and I actually had a connection call with Lizzie and she was like, well, what if you see this all differently? And what if you see this as you're creating this network of people that are your peers? And going into it that way was kind of like, oh my gosh, very eye-opening that yes, there could be people who become clients at any level. And
Right.
yes, there could be people who we collaborate on things and we connect with each other. And I think once I let that idea go that like this was going to be where I got clients, it made it feel so much more, I think, fun and easy for me to just show up and naturally be myself.
Yeah.
So and it's naturally also creating clients too. Like that's the cool part. It's like that's now the side benefit, but I thought it's what I needed going into this.
Yeah, it's like you had to drop the agenda. And I think so often when we go into community, it's like, well, what can I get? Because we want to know like what's in it for me.
Yeah.
What am I going to get by being here? And ultimately when you join a professional community, it's like, well, I want to get something that's going to grow my business.
Yeah.
And we always, that's a very big
Hmm.
statement, but
Hmm.
generally we think it's like, well, the way I make money is this thing. So if I get the thing that makes me the more money, then I'm getting the thing that I need.
Yeah.
And you spoke to this, but so often what we actually need is that peer support group. What we actually need is to be in the room that expands us. What we actually need is to be in the room with people that we might have thought are better than us and
Hmm.
realize that we belong there and that they help stretch us and show us what's possible. And that, yes, we get the clients. Yes, those things naturally happen, but the power of being in the room with those kinds of people. And I think this all the time. I'm like, I can't believe I'm in a room with these people. Like
Yeah.
so often. I mean, and not even just at like our Nova events, but then I'm getting introduced to these people constantly where people are like, oh my God, you have to meet this person. And then I'm
Right.
talking to them and they're telling me about their PhDs and their, 25 years of growing these giant brands and their global
Right.
success. And I'm like, I belong in this room. I belong in this room. I belong in this room. But it's that when you have that ambition,
Yeah.
stretching yourself to get in the rooms that are going to not only make you feel safe to be you but to show you that you belong in those rooms and that there's so much more also by giving
Hmm.
that you get to receive. Um, so I'm so grateful that you have come into my life. I've loved like getting to know you through our events and watching you continue to step into your gifts and your confidence. And thank you for being such a stand for women and for being a part of our community. We really love having you.
Yeah. Thank you. I just think like I'm so happy that it's interesting because I'm so happy that I was looking for what I was looking for. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
because I had this idea that, oh, I had already done so much coaching, I had already done so much work. Like I was looking for a very specific thing. So today, or to say that I was pleasantly surprised, like that doesn't even touch, I think, what I've gotten from this group for sure. And it's like this place of just welcoming and the welcoming. I mean, it feels so different than anything else that I've been a part of. And I just think it's like, I mean, it's one of the best things that I could have joined. Absolutely. Yeah.
So happy. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Stacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who knows where we're going to go. This is we're
Oh,
just getting started, so this is just the beginning. So I'm excited to continue to watch your evolution alongside of ours because we're birthing
all
babies.
growing together.
We're
Yep.
all birthing babies together.
Oh, thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. Well, thanks for being here today. And I don't know how to wrap this up. I'm like,
That's
and we're
it.
gonna
End.
stop going live. The end.